everyone, here we're back to Najdorf, and this time we're going to be looking at sidelines. We start from f4, a very active move, and I like black's response here, e5, the move which is in Najdorf spirit. Now white's knight has to retreat, either on f3 or on f5. Knight f5 after knight c6 doesn't promise anything to white. F takes e5, knight takes e4, knight takes g7 because on knight e4 there is the knight hanging on f5. So knight g7, bishop g7, knight e4. We have a lovely check on h4, knight f2, d takes e5. White has to develop, bishop d3, castle, castle, and f5. I think black is doing totally fine, having these central pawns, e5 and f5, gives them an advantage. So let's get back to main line, knight f3, knight bd7. a4 stops b5 and queen c7. Instead of a4, white could also play bishop d3 or bishop c4. On bishop c4 I like very much b5, bishop d5, rook b8, knight g5 to have a direct threat on f7, knight d5, queen d5, queen e7. Looks very good for black. So bishop d3 is another option, bishop e7, castle, castle, and king h1. Well, this is always useful for white to have the king on a safer place. There won't be any checks on diagonal. So b5, a3, we develop normally with bishop b7, queen e1, rook comes on c file, bishop d2, rook e8. Rook is always useful on e file. So rook d1, bishop f8, f takes, d takes, knight h4. White is trying to come to f5, but black has g6, knight f3, bishop g7, queen h4, knight goes to c5, bishop g5, and queen b6. Black has totally fine position. Let's go back to the main line and a4. So white doesn't want black to play b5. Queen c7. I like this move because it stops bishop c4. Bishop d3. White has to develop somehow. Bishop e7. Castle. Castle and king h1. As we mentioned before, king on h1 is safer than on g1. Knight c5 and queen e1. This is very usual move in Najdorf and in this type of position because white wants to jump on king's side and have some threats after f takes e5, bishop h6. Rook e8. This is always useful. This rook on e-file, it's very good because in necessary situation, black might take on f4 and push on e4. I mean, put pressure on e4. So, if white continues queen g3, it runs into an unexpected breakthrough, d5. Knight e5 is not so good after knight e4, d e4, and bishop c4, bishop e6 seems to be comfortable for black. So if white takes on e5 with pawn, then d4. Now ef6. Our queen is hanging on c7, so we have to exchange on g3, and bishop f6. Very good for black. So rook e8, white decides to take on e5, de5, queen g3. We should stop at this position because I like the next move very much. You might think that bishop f8 here would be more sensible. It protects g7 pawn and black king feels safer. Because now we see that on e5 the pawn is hanging, but after bishop f8, bishop g5 comes very badly. And if we retreat the knight, then d5 square is very weak. So our main move is bishop d8, bishop g5, and bishop e6. Here white can play knight h4, knight h5. We can see that the bishop attacks the knight also if queen retreats. So queen f3, knight f4. Actually, taking on h4, it's not so good. After knight d5, we have a problem on f7. So queen d7, and there is knight b6. So we should not get into this trick. Knight f4 is a good move. Bishop f4, ef4, and now the knight on h4 is hanging. Knight f5, bishop f5, ef5, and rook e3 with a very good position for black. Let's go back to the main line. Bishop g5, bishop e6. We sacrifice the pawn on e5, but it's not dangerous for us because we have a great compensation. Queen e5, knight e5, and knight g4. Eventually it turns out that white has to give the pawn back, because here if white goes knight f3, bishop g5, knight g5, knight d3, cd3, rook d8, it's good for black. The pawns are very weak and the bishop on e6 is strong. So if bishop f4, bishop f6, we force white to change on g4, knight g4, bishop g4, and now if white decides to defend the e4 pawn with rook e1, there is bishop c3, bc3, and knight a4. So white has to give up the extra pawn with e5, bishop e5, bishop e5, rook e5, and if bishop c4 attacking on f7, we have bishop e6 with equal position. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.